Hey, good morning, Laurie.
Good morning, Chief. How are you?
I'm all right.
Appreciate you making time today to have a conversation. I think that we want to share with lots of folks about the situation in the judicial branch.
Well, this is an important conversation for us to have, and we've been talking about doing this. And one of the things we've learned during the pandemic is we can use this medium, to communicate better. So hopefully we can take advantage of this, and we'll get our message across so that everybody in the branch will understand. I want everybody to know what our emphasis is, because our emphasis is on the people.
That's right.
And so the people need to know about this.
Well, and so our budget bill has just been filed, and I think anybody who has seen this knows what the emphasis is that you're speaking about, and that is pay for judicial branch, not only just our non-elected employees, but also all of the elected officials in the judicial branch as well, which are our judges and our circuit court clerks.
Everybody, I think everybody is aware of the fact that the proposal on the table right now in the General Assembly is 6% across the board raise for all state employees, which would of course include the people in our branch, or the non-elected people in our branch. And then the governor had proposed a 6%, which is, it was the other way around, wasn't it?
Yes, 6%. Sir. Yes, 6% by the legislature, 5 by the governor.
So the legislature has proposed, the proposals on the table would be a 6% raise across the board, which is good and generous, and we are, grateful for that. The governor's proposed 5%, and then the two kind of from the governor's address talked about the starting date, and I think they'll could come together on that. But we're asking for something different. We're asking for more.
And Chief, the General Assembly historically has funded our requests for our employees and pay increases a little differently. They haven't always just done the flat percentage increase like they have for the executive branch. And we have really made an emphasis, and I want us to talk about, I'm so glad you brought it up, our actual request and what is an actual flat rate dollar request for everybody across the board. And while we aren't asking for 6%, while we're actually asking for more.
Well, there's a lot of you and I, over year after year, when we talk about the budgeting process and where we stand with regard to, we being the judicial branch, with regard in comparison to other state employees, we lag so far behind. What are the numbers?
Well,
what are the numbers?
Chief, they're pretty stunning, actually. We're on average about 20% behind the executive branch in salaries. There was a really good article that ran recently from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy and really highlighted the staggering trend in state government, and really quite a frightening time, the number of employees that are leaving state government for the private sector for a number of reasons. But they found that the percentages of the executive branch salaries, how far behind, and the value, or the diminution in value of the pension benefit, had dropped so much that state government is having a really hard time competing. And frankly, we've always had a hard time competing with the executive branch. We always lose our employees to the executive branch. So we're seeing turnover right now at really frightening numbers, frankly. And if we talk about our turnover, we've seen a 56% change. Now, 56% of our employees are now tier 3 in the last 4 years, and they're leaving in large numbers.
Other state employees particularly in the executive branch, have been able to sort of highlight this through.
Yes.
They've shown up in Frankfurt, and they've made their position known, and so it's up to us to kind of get this message out, that it's clear. There is no reason for the employees in the judicial branch to lag so far behind their co-workers in the other branches. There's just no rational basis for that. And so we need to, first of all, you and I need to be clear when we communicate with the General Assembly, and then we need our people to understand that. We understand that we need our folks to know that this is an important issue of what we're calling pay parity or fairness. It's a fairness issue.
It is.
And we really want to make sure we get that message out.
Well, and since you became chief in 2008, we've actually made tremendous strides in how we pay our employees versus what the salary scale was before you were Chief Justice. However, we've been stuck in a constant game of catch up, and we have never been able to catch up, frankly. And I think that's why this. Go ahead, Chief.
All right, I was going to say this. They're telling me the light on top of my head is hot lights. It makes my head look like. But this is actually what hair is left is white. And I've been doing this a long time, but long enough to be able to say that, you know, when I was around when we created the Court of Justice, I was practicing law at the time, but I was around, and so we created the Court of Justice all those many years ago, and it was a huge change. But part of the conversation had to be, we're going to create this new judicial branch from whole cloth. And it's not going to cost the state a lot more money. And so since the beginning, you know, we have been lagging behind, trying not to cost the state any money. And we don't. We're what, 3% overall?
Yes, sir.
3%. And of that 3%, that's made up of what we pay our people.
It is. That's right. And
so historically, we've been behind. And we've been trying to play catch up now for 40 years.
And so we are 11 or 12% of the state government workforce total across the state. Our employees are in every county of the state. There are deputy clerks, our pretrial officers, our court designated workers, our drug court staff, our judicial secretaries, our law clerks, our elected judges, and our elected clerks. We're statewide. We're 11% of the workforce. We're 3% of the budget. And it tells you, number one, all of our budget almost is people. And if we're at 3%, it's a small amount that's invested in people. And I want to go back for a minute, Chief, because we were talking about what the actual request is. And we're really kind of trying to lay the foundation for folks so they understand why we're making a significant flat dollar request. I don't know if you want to talk about that amount just a little bit, because we looked at the 6%. 6% for our entry-level employees is about a $1,500 raise.
And a $1,500 raise, while, you know, I'm sure our folks would greatly appreciate a $1,500 raise at the entry level. But at the same time, you know, the cost of groceries, the cost of everything has gone up. That raise is going to be eaten up in all the expenses they're going to incur.
That's right.
And you sort of mentioned earlier this change that's happened over time in the value of the pension. It used to be that a job, you know, with the state in the clerk's office didn't pay as much as maybe the county clerk's office paid, but the pension benefits were worth it. But the pension benefits aren't worth it anymore.
They aren't.
We know that. We know that the people who get this $1,500 raise are not going to be able to sock any of that away. They're going to be paying for, you know, to raise their family.
Well, the increased costs in their groceries and their utility bills is going to eat that up immediately.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound ungrateful, because we're grateful. And the General Assembly has always responded, Chief, when you have asked for help for our non-elected employees. And I think we're trying to explain really how dire the situation is. We have never come to them with an ask, number one, this large, but we've never come in the situation that we're in right now. And we all started looking this together with you, Chief, several months ago. We were really looking at our turnover statistics. So if we talk turnover again just a minute, I just want to share with everybody. We have 1,000 new employees in the last 4 years. That's 1/3 of our workforce has less than 4 years of experience in the court system. And that scares me for our future. And
well, yeah, because again, we talked about, you know, the impact. Our people are at work every day in clerks' offices, in courthouses, justice centers, all across the Commonwealth. The average Kentuckian is going to encounter state government in the court system day in and day out.
Right.
So we really are the front door of state government. We're the emergency room.
Yes, sir,
of
we
state
are.
Government.
We certainly are.
And our people, show up every day and do their jobs, day in and day out. I can't say enough how proud I am to be associated with the deputy clerks all across the state, with the pretrial officers all across the state, the CDWs, on and on, the judges, who just, they don't talk about the money. They just do their job. So it's up to you and me to talk about the money.
That's right, Chief. And I want to, because we have an obligation to support our non-electeds. And we also have an obligation to try to help our electeds. And I want to talk about the disparity for our elected official salaries right now. And this is a hard conversation to have. It's been virtually impossible to get any traction on this issue since you've been chief. How many raises have the judges received?
We got one, and we were so proud of that small percentage raise that we got. I can talk a little more comfortably about this now, Laurie, because I've told everybody I'm not running for re-election. This is my last year. So any increase in pay that the elected officials would get will be of no benefit to me. So my concern really is I feel like I can now speak on behalf of the judges and the clerks who are elected. And people will say, well, you ran for that office. You knew what it was going to be. But what I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned. Kentucky ranks at the bottom. When compared to our other states, we are
51st. We're 51st out of 55 states and territories.
No, that's right. I was going to say, how can we be 51st if they're only 50? But you loop in the District of Columbia and the territories, which we do in our calculation nationwide. We are 51st in what we pay our judges.
So our judges make on average $32,000 less than our other general jurisdiction circuit judges across the country. $32,000 less.
Yes. So, and the expectation of our judges, the performance level is the expectation is that they're to do, a high level of performance, and it is important for the future of the Commonwealth that we attract the best and the brightest. Everybody wants the best and the brightest to be their judge on their case.
That's
it's
right.
that important.
Well,
and if we are rock bottom, if we are the bottom of the barrel when it comes to compensation, then how can we ever expect in the future to attract the best and the brightest lawyers to leave private practice and come to work in the judiciary? What we don't want are those people who need that job.
Yep.
What we don't want, what we do want would be the best and the brightest women and men to be willing to give their time. And right now, we don't compensate that way. There is no financial reason for anybody. How can they afford if they've got to support a family, educate their children?
One of our talented judges who really came on the trial bench when I think you became chief in 2008, I became director in 2009. And she said to me, I certainly didn't take this job because I thought I was going to become rich. I didn't take the job because of the money. But she said, if you had told me 15 years later that we wouldn't even receive a cost of living increase during the time I've served on the bench, I wouldn't have believed you or believed it. There's just something that we have to do and approach this. It has to be reasonable. And I want to give another example because I don't want to leave our elected circuit court clerks out when we talk about pay parity and pay equity. So
there's no, you and I know this, there's no group in our system, in our Court of Justice family that's worked harder on this topic, on pay parity than our circuit clerks. And I want them to know, over the years, we've had lots of conversations about that. But I don't disagree that they've worked harder to try for themselves but for the people who work for them. And we need to acknowledge that.
Well, and they are so focused on their deputy clerk salaries, which I appreciate, and how far behind the deputy clerk salaries are from the deputy county clerks, right next door. That's something that's confusing. A lot of our folks across the state don't understand the difference between the circuit court clerk office and the county court clerk office. there's a significant difference in duties and also salary, but our elected circuit court clerks make on average over $12,000 less than the other elected county officials in their county. So that's who we're comparing them to. And when they're that far behind and our judges are that far behind, it really depresses our salary scale down. It creates a ceiling, if that makes sense, that we're bumping up against. And I wanted to kind of revisit something you said a little earlier when we were talking about the 6% and how grateful we are. 6% does sound like a significant amount of money. And in fairness, for somebody like me, 6% of my salary is quite a bit more than 6% of somebody on the front lines. And I don't know necessarily that that's what the General Assembly intends, that they want the top end folks on the salary scale to get that much. Our focus is really on our entry level positions and our salaries for all of our people who have been here. We are so grateful to the folks who have stayed with the court system. And I know that's something that you and I talk about. They stay when they make less money, and their dedication to their job and to public service is impactful. So we're making a significant ask, and I don't even know if we've said it yet, Chief. If I don't know if you want to tell folks what we're asking.
We have. All right. Well, we're asking for a flat $10,000 for all of the non-elected and elected officials in our branch.
And that doesn't close the gap for our judges, our elected judges and clerks, but it at least gets us to a somewhat more competitive position with other state government jobs.
Laurie, how did we? Let's talk about it just a bit. How did we come up with $10,000?
So,
I mean, what does that mean?
So, Chief, we looked actually exactly at the numbers and the percentages and how far behind that we were. And at the time, since the Compensation Commission made that recommendation to the Supreme Court for that increase, we have seen the governor, social workers, state police, folks are asking for dollar amounts in excess of that. And the governor has that ability in his budget to change those salaries. So it's a different conversation sometimes about the percentages. We're talking about changing our whole salary scale and giving this raise to everybody. But our employees, when we calculate the 20% I told you about, right now on average, our employees are $7,500 behind state government salaries in the executive branch. So the goal is with $10,000, we at least get to a competitive on par level with executive branch salaries after this session is over, because they're all expecting increases as well.
So, the point is, I guess one reason I asked that question, because I wanted people who are listening this to know, we didn't just pull that number totally out of the air. We spent time going over state government and comparing the jobs that our folks do with the people who do similar jobs in the executive and legislative branches. And that's where we came up with the differential. I mean, it actually, we have the numbers to prove it and can. And,
our job,
and that's the reason.
Our job openings now post side by side. So when we have a job posted at a salary so much less than the executive branch job posting, folks aren't even applying for our positions. We are not even getting applicants for some positions in some parts of the state. Our turnover rate right now in the urban areas and in our key positions, 40%. We have a 40% turnover in urban areas and in certain key positions like our pretrial officers. And we've never, since I've been here, seen anything like that, Chief. And I kind of want to go back to really what it means to work for the courts. And what you mentioned that earlier, our folks can't get up and come march on the Capitol and protest on the Capitol steps or demand raises from their legislators while they're in session. We've got to man our desks at home.
What we expect, we being people who are consumers of the judicial services in the Commonwealth, what we expect from the court system is perfection. We strive for it. We don't get there. We're a very human organization, but that is what our expectation is. So our people show up every day to do the very best job that they can do. And they do that without, and so the compensation piece is so important in this fairness.
I really want to highlight that investment in our people. We have to make this investment in our people right now. We're at a critical, I feel like, turning point as a branch if this doesn't happen. Okay. Chief, is there anything else, I mean, that you'd like to say to our folks before we sign off?
Well, I want to say this. This again is my opportunity, sort of, for you and me to share a conversation with people who mean the most to us in terms of our judicial family. These are our fellow judges, our fellow clerks, those who work in clerks' offices, those who work for AOC, the Court of Justice all across the Commonwealth. And I think they need to know, or the message here that we want to convey is that we do care. We understand. We're making every effort that we can make to try to tell the story upstairs in the legislative branch that we need this infusion of money in order to compensate our people at a level that would be fair. And that's what we're asking for, is fairness.
Chief, thank you. And I know I say this all the time, you get tired of me saying it, but it's an honor. It's an honor to work with you, Chief.
Well, you know what? It's a great honor to have this job. It's the honor of my life to be called upon to lead the judicial branch, and it's been a great honor for me and a great challenge for me. But it's been a great benefit to me to be able to work with people, Laurie, like you and others who care so much and work so hard to try to make this system work.
And I think that's why we see so many employees stay with the judicial branch. We all believe in the common goal of providing equal access to justice for really all the citizens in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.